Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. Tonight we are continuing our series on the Drifter, everyone's favorite gambit vendor. Last time we talked about his initial resurrection and his feelings towards the fact of being resurrected, as well as his ghost and the light in general. And his time trying to ignore the fact that he was arisen and had these light abilities by living as normally as he could, or amongst normal people as much as he could, until the unfortunate downfall of that town at the hands of some Iron Lords and some Warlords at the time. He then moved on, took a new name, and set up shop at Fellwinter Peak, but still got revenge for that little town in his own way.
Yeah.
So tonight we're continuing his story, and what we're gonna do is there was a quest that came out during the season of the Drifter. I forget what the actual season was called. I don't think that was it, but
I think it was season of the or no, maybe it was season of the Joker.
no, I think that was
I,
Cade. It was like Joker's Wild. Maybe it
oh
was
yeah,
season
you're
of the
right.
Drifter.
Maybe
It's
I think
been a
maybe it
minute
was.
since it
Yeah.
came out. Uh, but during that season that was Drifter and Gambit focused, there was a quest where Drifter kind of gave his own summary of some of the events that had happened in his life. And we're going to talk about, or we're going to read off those summaries, and then some of them are going to be summaries of events that happened in our first episode, and they're going to lead us into the events of this episode, and we'll show kind of Drifter's summary, and then we'll really dig into the meat of what the story was through other lore cards, as you know, for the ones that have things available. So to start things off, we're going to read the summary of his time in the town of Eaton and what ultimately came of it. So all of these little summaries are coming from the quest dialogue, and that quest was named the Survival Guide, the Investigation. So the first of these goes like this. The Drifter says, Dark Age was a different time. We had no city. Warlords and Iron Lords tore up the whole world trying to prove who was better, what was worth fighting for. I was busy trying not to starve. You ever go hungry till you keel over? We did that a lot in the Dark Age. Our ghosts would bring us back still hungry. Really pissed me off. This one time I found a village to hide out in. Bunch of huts, really, but good people. They gave me work, and I kept my light a secret while I performed some minor miracles. Then the Iron Lords rolled into town. My ghost stayed out of sight, and they were none the wiser. They cut a deal with us, as if we had a choice. Paid us to let them hide out till some warlords showed up. Then ambushed them. We all got caught in the crossfire. My neighbor's kid told me something that still bounces around my head to this day. Right before the light went out of her tiny eyes, she whispered, I can't feel anything. Yeah, I couldn't either. That's all I got. Cut the tape. So that's the end of that little summary.
Oh,
So,
it's so small. Damn it! I got 2 hours to get through. I'm not gonna be able to. Damn it, man.
starting out a little somber. No, I know.
Yeah.
But it shows that, like, for all his bravado, Drifter still remembers this. Like,
That's crazy.
this still meant a lot to him.
That does still blow my mind when I think about it. When I think of like just a guardian, right? Like how long a guardian can live. It
Yeah.
essentially forever unless they lose their light or give up their light somehow. So yeah, like I, it's interesting to me to think like how many memories can be forged over hell 1,000 years, 2,000 years,
Right.
10,000 years. Like that's and to still be able to remember all of it. Like I don't know. That's just kind of a mind blowing thought there.
So it's no secret that Drifter is very distrusting of his ghost.
Oh yeah.
And he tells us as such in his next little summary, his next message as part of this quest. He says this: "Hey kid, it's me, the Drifter. And this is How to Drift Part 3. Never trust your ghost. He's a tool, a connection to the light, not a friend, not in any way that counts. You think he's saving your hide, bringing you back? Nah, he's saving his own. I don't care what your guardian dogma says. I don't care what your little buddy has told you. We don't know what ghosts are. They sound friendly, right? But I met some ghosts in the Dark Age who'd kill you for a blue engram, then spit on your grave. Also, they could grow their light a little more, make a stronger connection to the traveler, whatever the hell that means. You're an idiot if you think those ghosts aren't still around. Take mine, for example. Really creeps me out. Cut the tape, ghost, and don't give me that look. You know where we stand." That's the end of that little message.
That's kind of an interesting thought too, right? Like we really don't know what the ghost motives are. Like we really do just kind of take them for granted. They're just kind of like these little. I mean, yeah, they're the whole reason that we are guardians and the whole reason why we have the light. But like we don't really know why.
Yeah. And Drifter is taking the prerogative of like, if he doesn't have a good reason, he's just gonna assume it's bad
Yeah,
or self-serving at the very least.
yeah. No, that's an interesting. I don't know. I've never thought of that before too. Like I love when we have these little moments where like we'll read a lore entry and it's like, well, shit. I guess we've never really thought of that ever. Like it's just happened, like well, on last episode where we were talking about how a guardian just wakes up and they just go to the city and that's life. Like
Yeah,
during the Risen time, that wasn't a thing. Obviously, all those like what you said, all those pathways and what would that be? The rules weren't established. All those parameters weren't established, and in the Dark Ages, and but now it's very much like the Vanguard has a channeled set of instructions to follow. Kind of like, okay, a guardian's been risen. Let's get him, bring him in, teach him, train him, show him what the light can do. Like, and I think even that idea is evolving too, uh, especially like when we look at last season of the Haunted and Zavala, where he was very much like he kept trying to drive that point forward, like the traveler is not my god, this isn't my religion, this isn't my anything.
right.
When even before, when we talk about like the Vanguard and New Monarchy and all the different factions that existed, they were very religious like factions. And now we're starting to see this like evolution of what is the light, and to see that it's a tool, it's a something to help the person, but at the end of the day we're still trying to do something as a whole, as humanity basically. And for the Drifter to just be, I don't want to say completely uncaring, because obviously he clearly has some feelings.
Right.
Uh, but for him to be very questioning of the ghost and the light, and maybe not the light, definitely questioning of the ghost, right? Because that's
Yeah.
that's like the main thing. But yeah, that's interesting to think of it that way.
Yeah, he has a little more animosity towards it, but I think his view and now Zavala's view are not that far off from each
I
other.
don't
That
think so. I think you're right. I think they're very much aligned.
it's, they're seeing it as this is a tool to help humanity.
Yeah.
Drifter's just saying like, I don't trust anyone that hands me something for free. And, Zavala and our player guardian and whatnot are a little more trusting of our ghosts than that. But
This is true.
same kind of, through line with the thinking.
Yeah.
So we're going to pause on the little messages for now. I'll bring up some more as they become relevant as we read through some other stories. Uh, but we're going to read next a series of exotic armor pieces that describe uh, a heist and a job that Drifter did with potentially his first real fire team.
Ooh.
Uh,
Were these
and
were these pirate heists?
I don't. They don't call themselves that, but
Okay.
this was during the Dark Ages. So because they're talking about warlord territory,
Gotcha.
so same vein, you know,
Yeah,
same
I
kind
was I
of
was
feeling.
curious if it played into the current season, right? Like, is that where like his whole, enigmatic pirates, yeah, chicka chicka. I don't know if that's where that was leading, but
Yeah,
no, that yeah,
not directly, but some of the same vibes. Yeah.
cool.
So the first exotic that we're going to start with is the Stronghold, which is a exotic gauntlet for Titans, and it begins the story of this fire team, and it goes like this. This is how it went. We decide to knock off a little piece of warlord territory. Scary lady calls herself the Wake, owns this spot. I can't take a name like that seriously, but she's got the hoarder instinct like me, so she keeps her villages well provisioned. Well provisioned with an amateur security detail. Easy pickings from my crew. So it starts with me, right? I get us in. I set it up, blow open the doors, and then I hand it off to Otto when the cavalry comes. Now, Otto's a sword man. He's all about craft, technique, precision. It's disgusting. But I don't care how he does it as long as it gets done. So I just let him do it. And Otto does it so beautifully that when he's done, you're standing there holding your guts in your hands and thanking him for the show. I slip into the supply bunker real fast and quiet, and Otto covers me. He's waiting for them when they find us, and he makes them stop short. Huge guy, Otto. Giant with a sword and the meanest looking gauntlet on his arm you've ever seen. He takes out about 10 guys armed with rifles so fast, so smooth, that they don't even see me going for the goods. 1 minute we're surrounded, and then we're the only suckers left standing. That's the end of that card.
And remind me again, Stronghold is the one that allows you to hold guard indefinitely now, right?
I don't know if it's indefinitely, but very, very long. Like it is meant to be used with swords. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So it's
So
definitely, I mean, it lives up to its I assuming its original owner's namesake or its original owner's use. Um, I'm personally a huge fan of swords in Destiny. Uh, though I'm the one weird guy, right? Like I love a good caster frame because I feel like that's like an all-arounder sword, right? I'm not big on the whirlwind frames. Like they're not as flashy. I mean maybe they are. I don't know. And then isn't there a third frame?
yeah, I forget what it is, but it's like the uppercut is
Ah, that's
the
right. That's
R2
right.
on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old what is it? Raise lighter?
Yeah, it was originally what Ray's Lighter did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously you can see how much I like that. I can't even remember the name of the the sword type, but yeah, I do love a good I love a good sword over a gun in Destiny. So I love this little story of like this guy with a sword able to move so fast and smooth and swift that he takes out a whole stock of guys, and then he's the only one left standing. So that's a neat thing.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of that like Titan, knight, old school knight with nothing but a sword and shield kind of
Yep,
power fantasy to it, which is
very much so.
I dig that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next exotic we're going to read from, which directly continues the story, is called Liar's Handshake, and it is a set of gloves for the hunter. And it goes like this. While Otto and I finish up inside, Thalia covers the lookout. He's a thin, quick shadow, this lookout, and he watches every angle. He listens for every sound. He is on his toes, ready to throw up the alarm the second he sees one little thing out of place. Guy like that sees everything, but he doesn't see Thalia. She comes out of the shadows like a ghost, but steps into the light because now she wants to be seen. She waits a second too long for my liking, gives him too much breathing room between the reveal and her first punch. But I shouldn't doubt her. He doesn't even have time to bring his hands up. He's fast, but she's faster. She throws herself into every punch like it's her last, dodges and ducks his blows like a dancer. Scariest of all, she bares her teeth in this nasty smile while she does it. Doesn't make a sound the whole time. So that's the last thing the lookout sees. Her silent, grinning face as her cross counter reveals a hidden knife that slides smoothly into the soft flesh under his chin. Never touches a gun, that girl. She likes to get close, likes to look right in their eyes to be the last thing they see. Thalia lets him drop, wipes her knife clean on her sleeve, and raises her hand for Arin. Go, man, go. And that's the end of that lore card.
Holy cow! So another, it's interesting to me that his crew is mainly people that don't use guns. So again, remind me what Liar's Handshake does.
So Liar's Handshake is a hunter exotic that I don't have it in front of me, but as far as I remember, it increases the damage of your next melee.
Okay.
So, this
Yeah.
being very much a kind of a bruiser type assassin where she's beating him up with her hands to finally like shiv him at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it follows its namesake.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's to me like this story's or this portion of the story, the description of Thalia, right, was her name.
Yep.
Just the description of her is it makes me think of like a lightweight boxer, like a
Yeah.
really swift moving, ducking, dodging, weaving, throwing the punches when they need to go, and having a quick 1-2, like a quick follow up punch while they're doing their thing. So yeah, and also kind of dark, right? Like shove a knife in the fleshy part of her throat, like ugh,
Yeah.
oh. I mean, whatever gets the job done, right? But I mean, this
Right.
is whatever. Yeah, this is
Drifter never
whatever.
claimed to, crew up with good people.
That's true. Like, you're
Just
not
ones that
wrong.
got the job done.
Yeah, but I guess that's another thing to establish too. These are light bearers. These aren't just
Yes,
like
these are all
dudes.
light bearers.
Okay. Okay.
And so we get a little more information about Aurin, who was mentioned at the end of the last card. And this is on the Getaway Artist, which Zora and I are both very familiar with. It is
Absolutely
the
my favorite. My favorite for
Warlock.
arc.
Yeah, it's the Warlock Exotic Gauntlets. And it goes like this. If Thalia is lightning, Aurin is thunder. You hear him coming, and he likes it that way. He's got a kit bashed heavy bomber that he pulled out of a trash fire. The engine goes thut thut thut. Just these big, stupid sounding percussive booms, and it's like all monsters, man. The noise this thing can stop your blood cold. So Otto and I load the supplies into the back, and Thalia hops into the passenger seat. The chumps that run out to stop us are babies. That's the kicker with warlords, other than ours. There's not a ghost in sight here. Just civilians who can barely hold their guns without wetting their pants, who can't aim worth a damn, who stick their necks out for a bad guy with eternal life. Real geniuses. Boo hoo. Guess what? We got hungry too. We starved too. So when there was food, we took it. And if the warlords put cannon fodder in our way to slow us down, well, that wasn't my fault. It wasn't our fault. Anyway, Aurin, he stands up in that open roof cockpit and whoops, and the little devil on his shoulder, a crackling ball of arc energy, spits bullets behind him. mows down the idiots as they run straight into the line of fire like lemmings. And Auron doesn't need to shoot anything himself, but he does, for fun. When he gets enough target practice and Otto and I are on board, he lets his little blue buddy handle the rest, and he tears out of there like a bat out of hell. See, we were a well oiled machine, a perfect team. We could have kept on like that for centuries. And that's the end of that card.
Yeah. Arc Soul put in the work. Heavy lifter. I do love it. Like, I mean, even thinking of like raid mechanics and stuff, there's times where like you've got to hold something in your hand or like you can't use your
Mm-hmm.
guns. If you pop Arc Soul right before you do it, you have a gun. You have a gun for 20 seconds while you're doing whatever task you need to do in the raid. Like, I can't tell you how many times that's saved my ass. Like, it's yeah, it's I love Arc Buddy. I want Solar Buddy, please. Uh, so yeah. Um, so yeah, so this is just another again another thing that plays into the original user of it. Because that's what Getaway Artist does. You consume your grenade and you create Arc Buddy, Arc Soul. Um, so yeah, like it's as far as like the overarching story, he's right. They could have absolutely done that for thousands of years. If that little what 4-man crew was as good as they say as these exotics say they were, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't have kept doing that for centuries.
Yeah.
So I guess the question comes up: what made them stop?
Well, we get to see what came of this crew.
Oh
Uh,
no, this sounds ominous.
via the legendary auto rifle Breakneck,
Oh
which
man,
came out during Season of the Forge.
loved that. I think that was my first gun with like 10,000 kills on it. I absolutely love that little auto rifle.
So Breakneck mentions that Drifter didn't just have a fire team of 4, he had a full raid group. There were 6 people in
Well,
his
where the
little
hell's the other
crew.
two?
Uh, one of them was named Senric, and the other was Jock.
Okay.
And we see them in this, and we see what happened to the crew. So Breakneck goes like this. You know, said Senric, a thick-necked risen with a bulging vein in his forehead. I've always thought you were a sneak, but after 5 drinks on your dime, I'm feeling pretty fond of you, Drifter. Everyone laughed. Drifter smiled. Feet kicked up on the bar. The rifle holstered on his back was heavy with promise. You're a real smooth talker, he said. I wonder, you whisper those same sweet nothings to your pal Lord Reentz? The bar fell quiet. The vein in Senric's forehead began to twitch. Listen, no one's rocking the boat here, Jack spoke up. We shut Reentz out just like you said. Funny. I seen you in that alley too, and Otto, and Auron, and Thalia. He looked at them each in turn. Guess my eyes were playing tricks on me. Senric pushed his stool back. You have something to say it plain. Well, Sen, my eyes may be shot, but this, and he tapped the side of his nose. This works just fine, and I smell a rat. A whole mess of 'em, actually. Senric stood up. That vein of his looked about ready to pop. Drifter let his feet down as he reached for his rifle asp quick. And you know what we do with rats, don't you, brother? And that's the end of that card.
Yeah. Pop, 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 pop. Light them up. Yeah,
So,
they're all dead.
yeah, Drifter's crew dead by Drifter's own hands for attempting to betray him to a warlord named Reentz.
Holy cow. Do we know anything about this warlord?
I did some digging. He does not show up anywhere else in the lore except for an altercation with Lady Yolder of the Iron Lords. Um,
Oh,
eh, but it wasn't tied to Drifter's story in any way.
okay.
Uh, essentially, he was a warlord who was a dirtbag like they all are.
Typical warlord.
Right. And presumably they, had it out for Drifter in some way and his crew was going to sell him out. So he, you know, took him out for it.
Yeah. Did the drifter thing.
Did the Drifter thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the the Drifter at this point goes on another little adventure with a different crew. Um and he talks about this in across a set of armor pieces. Uh, and those armor pieces are the Ancient Apocalypse armor. And this is one of those ones where every class's armor set tells a different story.
Like each one is its own little adventure that he went on.
Yes. Yeah, each one
Okay.
is its own little adventure. Um, and in this case, we're going to start with the Warlock set. The Warlock set tells.
We're only starting with that one because we're warlock mains and
Yes,
we love
exactly.
warlocks.
Totally not because it makes the most chronological sense or anything. But no, so we're gonna start with the Warlock set, the Ancient Apocalypse Warlock set, and this talks about Drifter with another crew, one that he formed well after the the ill-fated one we just discussed. And this is an interesting little escapade because it all happens outside of Earth, outside of potentially the solar system. So we're going to start with the helmet, and it goes like this. I had a crew once, my best friends, which isn't saying much, trust me. They're all dead now, almost to a man. So, what does that mean for all you little guardians out there who are my new best friends? Don't think about that one too hard. Anyway, my crew, or a subset of it, we leave the system together. Dawn of the city age at the time. We were looking for something greater than light, because we had seen that light can be the cause of so much strife. We searched far and wide, must have been hundreds of years. We found a planet beyond the system, bristling with an energy that repulsed light. Naturally, we were curious. We landed, intended to settle and conduct the research necessary to make this energy portable. A weapon out of legend called Thorn had similar light repressing capabilities. It seemed promising, but hand to my heart, it was cold. Humans were not meant for that place. Every once in a while, a member of the crew would succumb, died where they stood or sat. Thank the plan for our ghosts. We were in high spirits. We were veterans, grizzled. Hundreds of years in space will do that. So that's part one of this story.
Yeah. So this is an icy planet
Mm-hmm.
outside the heliopause, past the edge of our solar system.
I'm assuming that's what he means when he says they left. It's beyond the system. I can only
Yep.
assume that means solar system.
Yep. And a time too. Dawn of the city age.
Dawn of the city age. Yep.
So city's been established. I guess not. So trying to think of who the original Vanguard were, but the speakers there, Osiris, Saint 14, all the big names are in the city, and Drifter's out with his this new crew,
Mm-hmm.
saying still after the entire Dark Age, saying screw the light,
Yep.
let's find something else.
Uh, Seemingly looking or interested in a weapon that would directly oppose the light.
Yeah.
And so they find this little ice planet where he and his crew are literally freezing to death and then being resurrected by their ghost and then
He
going
keeps
on
he
until they
keep,
freeze to death again.
he keeps putting he keeps getting in these crazy situations where he just dies of natural causes and then is resurrected. I don't maybe I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe he feels just as resilient as Aldrin or Crow would. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm. But so they're on this planet with this weird energy that repulses light. And they're trying to experiment and figure out how to take it with them. And we see the continuation of this story on the chess piece, the Ancient Apocalypse robes. And they go like this. So there we were, on that cold hunk of ice with no name. Just me and my crew. Everything peachy keen. We discovered some kind of alien monolith, a facility left by the inhabitants of that planet long gone by then. But trapped inside was a creature, in a cage of some sort, frozen in ice. An exhibit? Was it some kind of zoo? Still not sure to this day. We should have brought a scientist. All we had were, well, guys who thought we looked tough in dark colors. During our long stay on that planet, we found many of those monoliths, each with their own captured creature. Anyway, this thing, the creature, looked like it shared common bioenergetics with the hive, but there were no records then or since that I've ever seen of humanity's encounters with them. And the creature had a property the hive did not have. It produced a field that suppressed light, like a darkness zone, but contained to a gooey, vacuous form with no head. The anti light fields we had detected from orbit that spread across the planet, it was these things. Our ship's scanners indicated thousands of them were on this planet with us. We were ecstatic. In hindsight, we all could have done with a few less of them. It's the end of part 2 of that story.
So you know what this makes me think of, right?
Tormentors?
Yeah. Well, even more than that. Yeah, the headless portion of it, absolutely tormentors. The encased in ice portion of them, all the exhibits in Vow.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, and monoliths. I mean, they've got to be like the ziggurats or something
Yeah.
from Europa.
Could very
This
much
this
be.
scream this screams darkness. This whole entry screams darkness.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. So he describes these as being somewhat hive like.
Yep.
And I don't think the tormentors that we have seen don't remind me of the hive in any way. They remind me more of like Rulk.
Yeah, they very much look like Rulk.
So I don't know that these I don't think are the tormentors that we face in Lightfall.
Possibly like a cousin of them or something.
It could be. I mean, these could have been pieces of the original invading army that came during the
Oh.
first collapse. Maybe tormentors were different then.
Or like, okay, so when we see in Vow, like when we get to Caretaker, we now know that that is a Scorn with darkness infused in him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could that be what like these exhibits are? Or like
Maybe.
this is like the evolution process of it, or like this is the experiment of what is happening to whatever the darkness has found on this planet, and just encase them in this and try to infuse them with darkness and be like, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see if they turn into tormentors or something.
Yeah, maybe this is tormentor prototypes. Maybe
Oh
this
my
is,
gosh.
we know the Hive were part of the invading forces during the original collapse from
Yep.
the Witch Queen campaign. Uh, maybe some of those hive were taken by the witness or by Rulk, who would have been a part of that too. And they started experiments on them to see if they could turn them into, super soldiers like Rulk did with Caretaker.
Yep.
Uh, and these are the results in some way.
Holy
Um,
cow.
I,
That's freaky.
yeah. Uh, but no, so
Dude, the
definitely
darkness
gives
is not
me.
afraid to they're not afraid to screw with anything.
Oh no, no, because if
They,
if it evolves to survive better, then
that's sword
it's
logic.
it's just following sword logic.
It's following sword. Jesus Christ. Dude, sword logic. Damn. Okay. Sword logic is really powerful.
I mean, yes.
Like, I mean,
If
like, I mean, just as like a general. Okay, so sword logic is very powerful, just as like a generalistic thing. Like, you know, in this case, having no qualms with experimenting on something to see if it survives, and if it survives, your justification is, well, that's sword logic. It worked. If it dies, your justification is, that's sword logic. It worked. It wasn't meant to survive. Sword logic is, I don't, maybe powerful is insane might be a better.
I mean, it depends on how far you take it, like
Yeah.
survival of the fittest, natural selection, that is at its
Yeah.
heart the same thing as sword logic. Um just sword logic is on a more galactic scale and is in some ways I think less forgiving than nature is
Yeah.
interest as weird as that may sound.
Absolutely. No, that
But
Jesus. Yeah. Okay.
so Drifter and his crew are stuck on this ice planet, or not stuck, I guess, but they're on this ice planet with all of these encased creatures that suppress light in a field around them. And they think it's great. They're like,
That
look at
that's
this. This is awesome. We found these things. Uh, so the story continues on the ancient apocalypse gloves. And it goes like this. My crew and I quickly learned that the creatures in the monolith facilities were not the only ones on that damn rock. Plenty of them roaming around out in the wild where it was cold, but less cold than the frozen cages that contained the ones in the monoliths. How do we find out? Well, one of us died in our sleep. Not that uncommon, or tragic, actually. Happened a lot. Damn cold out there. Except this time, that fella's ghost couldn't resurrect him. Turns out one of those creatures had just slithered by, and close proximity to it from inside our shelter just silenced the poor bastard's light. It was unfortunate, but it also lit a fire under us. The next morning, we realized we had a potential weapon on our hands that could change everything in battles of light versus light. We knew we had to find a way to get these creatures off their icy home, and we needed to find it fast. Despite our breakthrough, tensions were a little high. Some of us thought it was awful convenient the creature wandered by and happened to take out only one of us, and so soon after we realized the value of them. And that's the end of part 3 of this story.
so the darkness fields that they're producing, are they light, is it light suppression, or is it just like what we talked about in Light and Dark, where the darkness is the equal and opposite reaction of light, and therefore is canceling it out just by proxy?
I think it's light negation, so canceling it out.
Okay, so not. I guess that's where I was going with this. Is this something that could have been uh, a predecessor to the light suppression stuff that the Cabal used, that the Scion Enclave used when they wanted to take out Zavala?
I think it's a different effect.
Okay.
Because when they used it on Zavala, they used it on his ghost, and it broke the connection between Zavala and the ghost.
Right.
Um, but I don't, I didn't get the feeling that like it wasn't like light didn't exist in that area. It was just the connection from light to ghost to guardian was broken. And
Gotcha.
the feeling I get reading this, because he described it at the bubbles around them earlier as like its own little darkness zone.
Yeah. Just like what we see in game when like you enter an area and it literally says darkness zone
Yeah.
and your ghost like you can't res there. Like if you die, like that's you got to restart. Like your ghost has to do the whole thing of looking at a different universe like, "Hey, turn left instead of right, stupid." And then you come back.
Right. And in this instance where this guardian died, his ghost was fine, but his ghost couldn't
Just
resurrect
flat out
him.
couldn't. Holy cow.
So it's almost like light ceased to exist for the things that were in that bubble.
Holy cow. So yeah, so this is darkness then. This is
Oh
darkness and
yes.
this is equal and opposite reaction thing. Yeah, holy cow. Okay. And a whole planet of them?
A whole planet, thousands of them.
Jesus. And
Yeah.
they're not just encased in ice. They're roaming around ready to eat a dude like it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose he ate him. I don't know if he
Who
did or
knows?
not.
Yeah.
That
With
Drifter's thing is eating stuff and still hungry. So I just kind of assumed that this creature ate the dude. But who knows?
yeah. But the story continues on the Ancient Apocalypse boots. And it goes like this. I mentioned tension was high among the crew in the last one, right? That's what I thought. Well, it got worse. Another one of us died in the exact same way, even after we took up residence in one of the monoliths. Idiot just froze to death. His ghost, too whacked out by the light repression to do anything about it, died in his sleep. The others were not happy about it. I was not happy about it. We had been looking for a way to contain the creatures. The monoliths seemed to have some kind of freeze tech, if you could call it technology, that we could use, but only if we could replicate it. I'm a pretty savvy mechanic, but we couldn't figure it out. We started to blame each other. Someone must have lured one of those things near our crew quarters. To this day, I still don't know for sure. Why kill just one of us? For what? It was more plausible that the creatures did it knowingly, a punishment for our intrusion. But there was no malice there that we could detect, only biology. At the time, we didn't care. Eventually, one of them drew a gun. I knew it would happen, and I'd prepared a soothing speech to smooth things over just in case. So I told them, holster that smoke wagon, and the next time any of you try it again, I'll kill 'em without a second thought. Now I don't speak plainly often, but when I do, even that crew listened. That's the end of that part.
I mean, that's yeah. I can definitely see why they're freaking out on each other. Like, that is odd. It's just doing it one at a time. Like it doesn't. It, when you think of, well, I guess it's a little bit of both. When you think of things in nature, right? Like something that's happening naturally, uh, like a lioness going on the hunt.
Yeah.
She only takes down what she needs out of out
Yeah.
of the out of the deal. So I can kind of see it like that. So I'm curious if this is like a hunting thing. Like, are these creatures actively hunting the light, eating, killing the oh, not channeler, the user of the light, so that way the light has nowhere to be channeled to, because we know that ghosts are connected one to one ghost, one guardian. Um, I I I say that, and now for some reason I'm remembering like a single ghost that like left his guardian and picked another one. Or am I crazy?
Um, I mean, I don't know that there's an instance of a ghost picking another one. There have been instances of ghosts. There's been one instance I know for sure of a ghost that transferred from a guardian that died to another light bearer that had lost their ghost, and that was the instance of Jaren Ward's ghost becoming Shin Malfur's ghost.
That's right. That's right. I think that's what I'm thinking of too. Um, so yeah, so like, but I guess that's like a super specific instance. I
Yeah,
feel like so I think in this, I'm curious if the creatures are hunt since I wonder if they're feeling the same effects, right? Like if they're super darkness infused and looking at it from the other side of the equation, they see the light as this suppression thing to them. Like, are they hunting and experimenting? Are they taking out are they, pushing this field out towards just enough to engulf a single ghost or maybe they are engulfing the whole crew, but just letting one of them die and then seeing what happens to the light field, like then backing away and seeing, okay, can the ghost do anything about it? Like if I back away from it, is it literally just a bubble around me, the creature, or is it something that's once it's out there and actively happening, does it stay out there? Is it constant? So I almost see this as like an experiment from the point of view of the creatures, of just testing what is happening when these completely strange foreign things that have a similar, we'll call it life force or tool, the light, uh, are inhabiting this planet now.
yeah, and to kind of go along with that a little bit, if we're assuming these creatures, whatever they were part of the army of the original collapse, part of the Witnesses' army during the original collapse, they never came into contact with Guardians. They never came into
Oh
contact with Light
shit,
Bearers because Light Bearers didn't, come
that
into
didn't exist.
existence until after that.
Oh
So
shit, I
if
never
if
thought of that.
these yeah, if these things do have a certain level of sentience, they may recognize like, oh, that's a human, quote unquote. That's something that, we're supposed to be hunting, but then they meet these humans that have the light, have this paracausal energy about them, and maybe it is these entities trying to experiment with like how do we deal with this new threat, this new version of
Yeah,
an old threat.
because and I don't and I mean, the point you made there, like during the collapse, there were no guardians, there were no risen, there were no warlords, there were no anything, there were no ghosts. Like the
No.
only thing that had light was the traveler, presumably. I mean, do we have any instance of the traveler using light? I know that sounds odd to say, but like we always think of the ghost as being like our connection to the light, but we also know that like with Mithrax, he talks about how the light can be like it's pulled from the planet, it's pulled from everything around you. It's like the force, it
Hmm.
it binds us and penetrates us type thing. Like it's has the traveler ever used the light?
We don't have a whole lot of information about the traveler like fighting,
Yeah.
uh just that it resisted. The only instance that comes to mind for me is with
We
the
have a lot of it
Awoken.
running.
Yeah. The only instance that comes to mind for me is with the Awoken, where the light wave hit the darkness at
Oh
the
yeah.
Exodus Green and created the singularity. So
Right.
presumably that light wave came from the Traveler.
Oh, and then similarly, like the end of the Red War campaign,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
the light wave pulsed out from the Traveler to break the cage. Okay, so the Traveler definitely has light abilities, or has access to the light. Okay,
In
that's I
some
guess
way, yeah.
I guess that's more of what I wanted to establish there was like was there has there ever been an instance of the traveler itself using light or showing off light or whatever, but there absolutely has been, like what you're saying with the exodus green, and then of course Gaul, and then when it healed itself, I don't know why I didn't think of that, the
Oh
live
yeah.
event in game, it when it pulled all the pieces back together, it did another burst of light then too. So yeah, it seems to be very bursty. That's all it seems to really do. It's not like wielding an arc staff or something, right? Like,
Now there's an image, an arc staff with the traveler just rolling around, flipping around with the staff twirling everywhere.
it's just like one of those bouncy balls you see it in like the sing along videos, but it's got an arc staff with it, just boing boing boing. Oh my god, that'd
Uh,
be awesome.
that
Anyway,
would, that would be fun. Oh, but yeah, so tensions are running high for the Drifters crew because they're like, why is it only one of us? Why do we keep dying, dying in our sleep essentially? Is one of you somehow like luring them here to kill us off for whatever reason? They're starting to go a little crazy, a little stir crazy.
absolutely.
And it just gets worse as time goes on, and we see the conclusion to this in the Ancient Apocalypse Bond. And it goes like this: We were at our wits' end. A year on that planet, and we had been completely unable to capture or tame the creatures that had become our sole objective. They were our bane. Our ship had long been rendered useless by the extreme cold. We had all died hundreds of thousands of times over to that cold. I know you've all been in the Crucible, played Gambit, but this was worse. Much worse. Anyway, 4 of us were left. We were raving psychos at this point. Only the 4 of us in the howling wind and the icy slopes for company. The occasional scurrying, vacuous creature to argue about. One day, we had settled in for the night in another monolith. Something swept over the planet. I later learned it swept across the system. Allah, you hear this, felt it. All of you hearing this felt it. You were there at the source. All 4 of us lost our light, and we knew it. We looked over at the monolith creature in its frozen cage, and it seemed to stare right back. I think I mentioned we were all raving psychos at this point. Well, we did what all measured raving psychos would do. We thought each had been betrayed by the other, and we drew on each other. To this day, I'm not sure how many of those guys Drew intended to kill, but I'll tell you this: I was the only one who walked out. The creature in the monolith watched it all. When it was over, I stuck a finger straight up at it. It was just me now. How'd I get from there to here? Maybe I'll tell that story someday. We'll see if my gambit makes it that far. And that's the end of this story.
So that's got to be when Gaul encased the traveler.
Yep. So
Holy cow, that's like
from
recent.
from the beginning of the city age to the D2 vanilla campaign, Drifter was either A, out exploring the outside the solar system, and it sounded for the last year of that exploration was stuck on this little ice ball with no way out.
Holy shit. I mean, that's yeah, I bunch of crazy guys that now, I mean, actively no longer have the light. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course they draw on them. I am like, I do like the ending where it's like, yeah, I'll tell you someday, maybe we'll see. Which, but then I guess that brings us to my next question. What is Gambit? Obviously
Well,
it's a play mode, but like, what is the purpose of it? Why are we collecting darkness motes? Why are we depositing them in a bank? Like, why do they why do they send why is there all this taken that happens when you get enough things? Like, I know there was a scene, oh god, I'm trying to think of when it was, but it was Drifter looking down one of the dredgens, one of the guys with Thorn, and they're sitting there playing cards, and oh wow, playing cards. Holy cow. How did I not realize that Jermaine? Oh my god. I just had a connection from our last episode. Damn it. He was playing cards. when you was talking to him.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I should have seen it. Anyway, damn it. uh Damn, I just lost all train of thought off of that. Man, okay. So the scene where he was playing cards and there was a dredge in there and he says, you know, look behind you and summons a captain. Captain takes him out, you know, knocks him off, and then he's like, "Whoa, hold on, big guy." And all of a sudden that disappears and the emissary appears, and of course he's all pissed off at the emissary, but that's another story. But yeah, so like what is Gambit? What is the purpose of us doing Gambit? What are the moats? Why is there a darkness bank? What the hell?
Well, a decent amount of that is coming up.
Oh my god.
But I mean, it's worth asking. Um, as best I can tell, uh, Gambit exists to generate dark moats for Drifter. You know, when we're banking them, they're not just disappearing. We're
Right.
banking them. We're depositing them. And Drifter is the one that collects.
Yeah.
And presumably those dark moats can do many things. One of them being summoning at least semi controllable Taken.
That's a crazy thought though. Like, because
Yeah,
taken is a power of the darkness, but then when something is taken, all of its will is stripped from it. Or at least from what we know of taken. Or at
right.
least what I know, I guess.
And in that scene, the same scene you were talking about, Drifter uses a darkness mote to summon that Taken captain.
Right.
So it seems like he can use these motes to do things to affect things of dark. Uh, you know, a lot of people don't maybe think about this, but the opposite of mode of dark is a mode of light,
Yep.
and modes of light are what are generated when we use light abilities, our
Yep.
supers primarily.
Used to be an item in D1, and I think it was even in D2 for a while, that you could
Mm-hmm.
literally use it to power yourself up. That's what you could use to gain experience and level up.
Yeah. Uh, so these motes of light currently kind of, you know, they charge your super. They supercharge beings of light, guardians.
Yep. And spoiler alert, they're circles and the motes of dark are tetrahedrons. I refuse to call them pyramids.
But if motes of light supercharge beings of light, motes of dark
Oh shit.
either power up or, you know, affect in some way beings of dark. And Drifter's getting a lot of them. To get back on track with where we were originally with our story, um, we're going to skip back over to the survival guide investigation dialogues from Drifter, uh, because he does eventually get back to Earth, back to the solar system, and you know he doesn't just sit around. He's busy while he's here. Uh, and so he tells us this little summary of some of the things he did that garnered some attention that he's not too happy about. If you're going to hang with me, you need to know about the shadows of yore. They follow the edicts of a very bad man named Dredgen Yor. And what are his shadows after? Everything the light can't provide. I thought they could help me find an answer to the battles of light versus light. But the longer I flew with them, the more I saw they're blind as all those who follow the traveler. Just one albatross for another. I was done with them. And that title I give out, Dredgen, I did it to piss them off. Draw the shadows out where I could see 'em. Worked like a charm. I love all you little guardians. You're so forthright, so eager to please. That make you angry? Good. Use it. And that's the end of that little message.
So that, like, I mean, I know the whole. Well, I guess I don't know the whole thing with the Dredgens, But the big thing with the Dredgen started off with, wait, wasn't Drifter a Dredgen?
Yeah, that's what he just said. He was running with
Right,
the
right, right, right,
Dredgens of
right, right, right,
yore,
right, 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 right. Dredgens of Yore. Yeah.
but
Uh,
decided that they didn't have the answers he was looking for, and so he left.
because that's the whole thing with the Dredgens, though, is that they used Hive chitin to graft it onto their guns to make weapons of sorrow. The most famous being Thorn, and the newest being Osteostriga. And now that we know a certain thing with a thing, Touch of Malice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I they made duplicates of Thorn, but they were not making actual weapons of sorrow. The the
Okay.
only the only Dredgen that ever made an actual weapon of sorrow would be Dredgen Yor with the original
Right.
Thorn.
The original Thorn.
Uh,
Yeah.
the followers that kind of created this cult after Dredgen Yor's death, um, they tried to make their imitations of it. Uh,
Right. As any good cult follower would do.
right, uh, but none of them ever actually achieved, what the Thorn was.
Okay.
Uh, and as you'll learn when we someday cover Shin Malphur and Dredgen Yor, uh, not all is what it may seem with the Dredgens in general, but
Damn it.
that's
You're
for
gonna keep
another
me in
time.
suspense for that one. Damn it.
But yeah, so Drifter ran with the Dredgen crew for a little while, thinking that, they go after the dark. They're looking for things outside of the light. Maybe I can learn something. And then he decided they just traded the Traveler for this image in their head of Dredgen Yor. It's
Oh,
just
sure.
it's not helping me. They're just
Like,
worshiping something else.
yeah, just trading one false god for another false god. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
But his time with the Dredgens got him on the radar of somebody. And we get to see that somebody's impressions of Drifter in the lore book A Drifter's Gambit. Specifically, this is the chapter titled Justified Means. And it goes like this. The Drifter wasn't always my target. In fact, he only came to my attention when he started running with what I would call prey. Before that, he'd existed only as a rumor. The strange light bearer who journeyed beyond the system's edge. The lone wanderer who is only a guardian by reductive modern definitions. He had a ghost. He was touched by the light. His motivations, though, were his own. Some might say selfish, and I'd have to agree. In regard to the concepts of duty and devotion and using one's gift for the betterment of humanity, not his play. City be damned, traveler be damned, the light be damned. Which makes his run to the tower and his newfound benevolence all the more curious. I lost track of him when the traveler fell silent. Could be that severed connection drew him back. If so, I doubt it's something he'd admit. Yet here he is, unwelcome, but with a gift for persuasion. I can't say it doesn't make me uneasy. There was, so we're clear, a time that I'd call him a threat. There was a time I'd look to end him as punishment for the paths he'd tread. But things aren't quite so simple these days. Gaul taught us that. And while I still plan to punish those who have transgressed, I can also see the value in certain risks. This gambit, the drifter's strange little game, may just be one such. It requires care and a keen eye to ensure the means don't consume the ends, but I got a feeling our new friend might be a necessary catalyst. And if not, he sure makes for a fine cut of bait. — From A Renegade's Observations of a Drifter. And that's the end of that card.
So, as much as I don't want to tangent, we have to tangent just a little bit because we kind of have to. I, I don't want to say explain in depth, but like the whole Dredgen thing and the Weapons of Sorrow. What was the purpose of Dredgen Yor?
Well, okay, so
Or I guess purpose is probably
yeah.
the wrong word. Like why did Dredgen Yor? Because here's my whole understanding of the whole Dredgen thing. Uh, Dredgen Yor saw people going down a path that wasn't in line with what he thought the light was for the city, and so he took it upon himself to end those light bearers using Thorn, Weapon of Sorrow. Hopefully, I'm at least sort of accurate there.
Um, I don't know. Is the honest answer. It
Okay.
has been a while since I've really dug into the Rezil Azir and Dredgen Yor stuff.
Yep.
Um, my understanding was that Rezil Azir, which was his original name as a guardian, he was a shining beacon of hope. He was seen as a hero amongst the guardians of his time. Uh, but he doubted his own abilities. He had this seed in him of like I essentially an incredible imposter syndrome of
Okay.
like I'm not this hero. I am not as good as these people are saying I am.
Like one of those like I'm just a dude type things.
Yeah. And he, had this self-doubt that then led him to being manipulated by the hive uh via like via hive whispers essentially
Right.
that eventually corrupted him into becoming uh I'm that I'm not a hero turned into, well, then I must be the villain uh
Sure.
kind
Sure.
of mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now there's again this subject needs a series in and of its own, not just to tell the story but to properly discuss some of the motivations, because
Absolutely.
your had what he showed everyone was his, his prerogative seemed to just be wanton murder. And
Okay.
then we have what later down the line, Shin, who was yours, like, his big enemy essentially.
Right.
Uh, Shin kind of thinks that Yor may have been doing what he was doing for different reasons. Um,
Oh, okay.
and but again, that's a huge discussion to have.
Right, right. And that's where like I didn't want to completely tangent off and be like, "Hey, guess what? We're no longer covering Drifter. Now we're doing Dredgen shit."
Right. So, needless to say, Yor, died at the hands of Shin Malford, died the man with the golden gun. And in his death, the legend of him, as the years went on, as tends to happen with historical figures, even in our our times, the legends of the man became more well known than the realities of him, and he started to gain followers. Like there were people that started to idealize Yor's way of thinking of like, yeah, we don't need the light to be powerful. And they started assigning their own definitions of what Yor's mission was, and then kind of
Gotcha.
propped him up as like this figurehead. And because he was dead, like he couldn't dispute what they were saying. So it just, this cult grew around him,
Okay.
and that is the Dredgens as they're
Okay.
described in these lore cards. And Shin is still around, and Shin has taken it upon himself to make sure that nobody else ever goes down the path that Dredgen Yor did.
Gotcha. Okay. So then, the renegade is Shin or Dredgen?
The renegade is Shin.
Okay, okay. So I guess that's where my question comes back to. Why would Shin want to hunt down Drifter, other than now he's no longer following the teachings of Dredgen Yor? Like, is that literally his whole thought process? Is like, hey, you betrayed us. I'm hunting you down.
I mean, kinda like that.
Okay,
Shin has up until a certain point in the stories been a very black or white character. Like you're
okay.
either for the light or you're against the light, and there is nothing in between.
There's no in
Uh,
between. Okay,
and so for Drifter, not only being a Dredgen for a period of time, but even still after leaving the Dredgens, being a very like fuck the city, fuck the traveler, fuck the light. I'm in it for me by any
he
means necessary.
he does do
Uh
that a lot. He does like flipping things off, and I
yeah.
respect him for that.
It that doesn't vibe with Shin's ideas of how the light should be used for the betterment of everybody.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
he recognizes that the drifter is a unique individual, and although he's ready to take him out if he has to, he kind of wants to see where this goes with
Yep.
Drifter.
Okay. Okay. Well, where does that lead us then?
That was talking about the initial like contact or the initial observations of Shin on Drifter. Um but Drifter knows about Shin. And goes on again if we're hopping over to the survival guide. Goes on to talk about his impressions of Shin Malphur. And he says this. Now you can't be in the Drifter's a Drifter's partner and not know about Shin Malphur. The man with the golden gun is still out there. He's a hero, the stuff of legend. Naturally, he's after my ghost. He wouldn't be the first, but everyone and their grandma has a malfeasance hand cannon by now. I think we're okay if Mr. Malphur ever shows his face. He follows the light like a zealot, and he ends all those who would consort with the dark because of the one man who went rogue. It's not his golden gun you should be afraid of, kid. It's his idea that one man can decide he makes the rules, and when you cross him, he can take everything from you. That just doesn't sit right with me, and it never will. And that's the end of that message.
I mean, that's he's describing him exactly like you said. He's a very black and white guy. Like it either is or it isn't. And if you fall on the opposite end of the spectrum for his ideals that day, he's gonna end you. Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. But I guess that's the other thing too that I wanted to ask. Uh, Shin Malphur is alive,
Yes, Shin Malphur, as far as we know, Shin Malphur is still alive in game right now.
and he is the man with the golden gun.
Yep, he goes by the man with the golden gun. He goes by the
Okay.
renegade. He has a couple different titles, but yeah.
He's not the Doctor, not Doctor Who. James Bond villain, right? He's not
No.
that man with golden gun. Okay, gotcha. This is more like gunslinger golden gun, like pa 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 pa. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, by all accounts, he may have been the first person, the first guardian to ever use the golden gun.
Okay.
So, and actually, it's not any longer, but there was some theorizing that the picture of the hunter, in the original solar golden gun, stat block, when you're just choosing the diamonds,
Yep.
that picture in the background of the concept art of the hunter was a concept art of Shin Malphur.
Yeah. That's what I always thought it was. Is it is
So,
is that not the case then, or?
well, because Solar doesn't have those background arts anymore.
Oh, that's right. You just have. So the concept art could still have been that, but we can't see it anymore because now
Right.
we just see ourselves
Yeah.
holding our hands out like I've got the light or I've got the dark. Yeah. Okay.
So Shin and Drifter cross paths,
Yeah.
and like physically they cross paths. They meet each other, and we can see some information that Drifter gives that might be true, might not be. You never know with him. Uh, but we see this interaction in the Drifter's Gambit lore book, the chapter Artifacts and Old Friends. And this one goes like this. By chance, he and I crossed paths in a neutral setting. Didn't give me his name, just called himself a drifter. Told him if that's how it was, he could call me pal. He laughed at that, got comfortable, got all kinds of open about where he'd been, what he was hauling, even dropped a tip on where an old friend of mine was hiding. I still wonder if he knows who I really am. He told me he left the system as soon as he was risen. Not immediately, sure, had to get his bearings, find a ship, get it fit, get it flying, but as soon as, he was good as gone. Drawn to the outer, he says. I can appreciate that. He says he's seen the deep side of Jupiter, been to the core mines of Saturn, name drops old myths no one's heard, the Luvial Crux, the shift chasms below Ilios, the fourth tomb of Nezarec, goes on about the idols of the lower soul, the treasures of Exodus Prime, the solar engine of Dead Star 6. I think he's making most of it up. But he's got relics and etchings. He's got materials not of this system. Odd materials. Obsidian flames, thought engines, edible null cakes, and a stuffed something that looks like a rabbit biofused with a cephalopod. He keeps all this stuff to himself. His gets, he calls it. If they're for show, they put on a great one. But to what end? The clutter of oddities he's got shipside ain't nothing compared to what he's hauling. That big black mass of nothing you ain't ever seen before. He calls it an artifact, but it's more than that. Just don't know what exactly. He said he got far out as he's ever been. Said it was from a place cold enough to snuff out your light. I asked him, was it Vex? Hive? Cagey is all. He said no. It was just other. And it was powerful. Maybe. That was his qualifier. Maybe. Why the hell bring it to the inner system then? Maybes are trouble. But he's got an answer for everything. He says, brother, maybes are where the real treasures hide. He could tell I wasn't satisfied, but I knew he wasn't lying either. The chunk was other, for sure, and Ghost said its readings were off the charts, but abstract, unlike anything anyone had encountered. Can't say that made me comfortable. Then the drifter, with his easy manner and eager charm, asked if I'd ever met a man in black named Callum. He was clearly changing the subject, but he was lucky enough, or smart enough, to pick one I had interest in. And I can respect that. And there's the end of those notes of a renegade about the drifter.
Holy cow. Well, I'm being drawn back to that same scene that I was talking about with the dredgen and the captain and the moat and the emissary. At the end of that scene, I swear he asked the emissary for something and she says, "We already gave it to you. You're hauling it." Is the thing that and we see it like super up close. Like if you start the prophecy dungeon, like when you jump through, you started on his ship on the main part of his ship, and you jump through that like whoop that transmat ring, and you get launched directly towards this thing. But then a light flashes, and now you're the realm of the nine. What is that thing that he is hauling?
That is a very good question, and one that I don't know if we actually have the answer for.
I mean, I feel like it's got to be something tied to the nine.
I think so too. If I recall correctly, the nine are the ones that gave it to him.
Right.
Because I'm fairly certain that it was either that cutscene or a different one during the same season where he didn't have it. behind his ship, and then he had a meeting with the emissary, and then
I
it
think
it
it's that
literally
scene.
like appeared
It
behind his ship.
appears. I
Yeah.
think that's that same scene. Yep, that's at the end of that scene. And she's like, "Here you go," and it's there. And he's like, "What the hell is this?" And she's gone. Like, I think even he doesn't fully know what it is, but it's definitely some connection to the nine somehow. But
Yes.
I'm also curious as to like what, because I don't think it's like a light suppression thing or a darkness suppression thing or anything to do with either one of those. I just it just kind of blows my mind that nobody, even the drifter, doesn't seem to know what the hell this thing is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what it would be. That the nine would have given him, but whatever it is, it's powerful.
Yeah,
Maybe, according to Drifter.
maybe. Yeah.
uh,
Okay, so everything from that lore entry is Shin. Shin was talking to the drifter.
yeah, that was Shin recounting a his kind of chance meeting with the Drifter.
Gotcha. And the drifter does mention like a bunch of phantasmal things. Like, I know the one thing that you and I have always picked out of there was the fourth tomb of Nezarec, presumably being Nezarec of Nezarec's sin and
Yeah.
Nezarec's what's the glaive?
Nezarec's Whisper, I think.
Whisper. Yep. So yeah, so presumably the fourth tomb of a possible disciple of the witness. Um, so yeah, like it all the things he mentions there is like who knows what's real and what's not. But then like the fact that he has some of this stuff. I'm sorry. He mentions a stuffed thing that looks like a rabbit crossed with a cephalopod. I want a cephalopod. Is that crab or is that squid?
I think it's. I gotta look it up now.
Google's gonna help us on this one.
I want
Uh,
to say squid.
I think it's squid, which is even funnier because now I'm just thinking of like a squid with bunny
Yes,
ears.
yes,
It
octopus
is
or
okay.
squid. Yeah.
So yeah, so I want a stuffed bunny, a stuffed. Would it have the head of a bunny and the legs of a squid, or like the body of a squid with bunny ears and a fluffy tail?
Your guess
That'd
is
be
as good as
awesome.
mine.
I want this stuffed thing though. The fact that it's stuffed, that means that it's like somebody's taken the time to find something out in the wild that looks like this, and then imitate it as like a prize at like a carnival, and then Drifter has won it presumably, and now just has it. Like what?
Yeah.
Where would you even go to get that? Anyway, so yeah, so there's all these things, and then Callum, the mention of Callum, like that really
Hmm.
drew Shin's attention. Who is Callum?
So Callum was another Dredgen, but was he was another Dredgen, but I was there for a different reason than some of the other Dredgens.
Okay.
He was kind of a sleeper agent, maybe a double agent, I guess is a better term. He was a Dredgen who was a part of the organization to find other real Dredgens. And he was
Oh.
working with Shin in that capacity to essentially say, okay, these are the people that are actually trying to like create weapons of sorrow and use darkness and things. And then
Holy
Shin
shit.
would take care of it.
Yeah, find him and end him. Holy shit.
So Drifter name dropping kind of his accomplice. Uh,
Oh yeah, that's kind of a giant like okay. All right, I'm following now.
so
I'm
like,
picking up what you're putting
oh,
down.
you know more than you're letting on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And for some the name Callum seems familiar to me too cuz and I may be jumping ahead in the story and I apologize if I am. Uh during the Malfeasance quest, I swear that's where you go to is Callum's Last Stand, and there's literally like an outline of just an explosion of dust and an out like a body cut out, almost like if the Roadrunner had or Wile E. Coyote had busted through a wall and it left a perfect cutout shape of him in the wall with like just ash is blown out, and then a crumpled up ghost, like a dead ghost at the floor
Mm-hmm.
of them. Am I remembering that correctly? Was that like Callum's last stand or something like that?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay, but am I jumping ahead?
Well, we're not going to discuss. We're going to discuss malfeasance, but again, that's all more the Dredgen storyline.
Okay,
So I wasn't planning on discussing Callum in any length.
that's fine. I was just curious as the whole connection with Callum and making sure that I was remembering correctly.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That is Callum's last stand is finding that location is part of the malfeasance quest line, or the original quest line. I don't know if it's still the same anymore.
I don't know. I don't know that it is or if it isn't. I don't know that you can still do that quest.
Yeah. Um. So he knows.
Right.
Drifter knows Shin Malphur has him on his radar.
Yep.
The fact that he named, seemingly met him at random and then name dropped his like super secret accomplice
Yeah.
is kind of like, yeah, I know what's going
Big
on.
old red
Don't,
flag.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't bullshit me.
Well, and that's important to know too. This whole interaction between the two of them happens while Drifter is a Dredgen, is running with the Dredgens.
Unclear.
Okay.
We don't have a good time frame for if this happens while he's running with the Dredgens or afterwards.
Okay.
I kind of get the feeling this is after that time period,
Okay.
but yeah, not 100% certain. Um, and if we think back to the little summary that Drifter gave us in the survival guide dialogue, he talks about like everyone and their grandma has a malfeasance hand cannon now. So I think I'm okay if Mr. Malphur ever shows his face. Meaning if Shin ever comes for me, he, malfeasance is his response to the golden gun.
Yeah. Well, because that's the whole thing with malfeasance is the more you have of it, the more powerful it becomes.
Yes.
Because it's I love malfeasance. It's got to be my favorite. It is the smoothest hand cannon in the game. Anyway, but this thing it fires the slugs that burrow in to the target. And then on the fifth slug, they all combine and explode. But the slugs don't have to come from the same gun. You can have 5 slugs from 5 different guns and they all combine and explode. So I think that's the main reason why he's given the
Yep.
everybody and the grandmother has one, so we've got an answer for this.
Yeah, and he actually says as much in the malfeasance quest. When you are finishing that quest and you have crafted the gun, Drifter says this dialogue. He says, "I finally have an answer to the man with the golden gun, and it's something you and me built together. What do we say we call it malfeasance? Sure, I've shot bigger guns, but this thing is weaponized heat death, pure atrophy, and it's my key to freedom from him. Fact is, you don't outdraw the gunslinger. No one can. But my entire crew armed with this, we don't have to outdraw him. We just have to get our shots in, and he dies too." So that is
Okay.
exactly what
Yeah.
Drifter's plan was.
Yeah. Get as many malfeasance out there in the wild as possible, and if he shows up, we all draw.
Yep.
You know. Sweet. Okay.
And if we go down, chances
He's
are
coming with us.
we got enough shots in him. He's coming with us.
Because I'm telling you right now, and I've tried this in PvP, 5 body shots with that thing is a guaranteed kill.
Yes, it is. Uh, that is kind of the end of Drifter and Shin's tenuous, relationship there.
Man, Drifter has had his finger in everything.
He really has. Really has.
He's had his finger in with the warlords, the Iron Lords, the City Age, the beyond the Heliopause, Shin and Dredgen, like
He lived a
the
long
Nine.
time.
He has had his finger in everything.
So I missed a little bit of lore
Oh no.
for his
Oh no.
time outside on this ice planet. There's a final entry that I didn't catch because it's not on the Ancient Apocalypse set. It's on the Reaper Bond.
Ooh.
Uh, so I'm going to read this now, and this explains a little bit about how he got off that Forsaken rock.
Ooh. Okay.
It goes like this. Okay, it's been a while since I sat down and did one of these recordings, so where was I? Ah, my crew and I had been stuck in a prison of our own making, dying over and over from the cold on a frozen rock out in the deep black, hounded every day by the indigenous life that could erase our light just by being near us, life that we were hoping to capture to help us end battles of light versus light. But they were killing us one by one, robbing us of the traveler's gift in sub-zero temps. We each thought the others were to blame, somehow luring the creatures to camp during the night as claim victims. Could have just been bad luck. The place was riddled with the things. Even now, I couldn't tell you. It was dark, it was cold, for days, weeks, months. Just as tensions between our group reached critical mass, on the other side of the system, Gaul and the Red Legion took out the Traveler. Even out in space, it cost us our light. But we didn't know that. We all felt it, blamed each other without saying a word. I could see it in their eyes. If I didn't draw, they would. So old Drifter was the only one who walked out. Final deaths, all of them. To this day, I don't know whether that planet with its numerous monoliths was meant to contain those beasts or breed them. Some of those morphs were caged, but some walked as free as we did. So, how did I get from there to here? We had no ship. We had no way to contain those anti-light creatures that had been the whole point of the trip in the first place. And the craziest thing happened. My ghost snapped. What do I mean by that? Let me step back. I think all this time, my ghost was hoping I would fall in line, that I just needed time to take up the mantle of the traveler, my rebirth right. But that had never happened. It took hundreds of years, but my ghost finally flipped. How? Well, our escape was all its idea. If we can modify its light to replicate the energy effect of the monolith cages, it might be able to contain the creatures in the same way. But we would need parts, ghost parts. And we knew where we could get some. The ghosts of my former crew all fled as soon as their charges hit the dirt. So me and mine, we hunted them. And then it came time to perform the modifications. Are you sure about this? I had asked it. There were lasers all around us, scrounged from my crew's wrecked ship. Just make sure it works, it said. So I began, sparks flying round me as I cut into its little armor. If I died to the cold before I finished, all would be lost. It spoke over the din of the work. Hey, there's always hope. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. That was the last thing my ghost ever said, and the last lie it ever told. The next morning, it was forever changed, but it had a brand new shell of armor, reinforced by the guts of 5 other ghosts, and its eye was bright red. It could no longer speak. The blue setting was still there, accessible whenever we needed it, but the red setting would save our lives. It was kit bashed and jury rigged, but it could replicate the energy of the cages. We froze every creature we came across, brought all of them on board a new ship, cobbled together now that we were free to explore the ice trap of a planet. It was a trash fire of parts I lovingly dubbed the Derelict, a ship that I added to as I journeyed back towards home. Ghosts could now tap into spectrums of light no one on Earth had ever seen, spectrums beyond the light. Don't get me wrong, I'm no herald of the dark. This was a kit bash job, after all. But it was a renaissance for us. Gambit banks, motes of dark, the derelict. They were all innovated out of that red light setting. And that's when I suppose y'all met me. I think it's time to get back to Gambit. You should too. And that's the end of that card.
Holy shit.
A lot of implications here.
There's a lot of stuff here. He cut it. What the hell? He cut up the other ghosts and fashioned it into a ghost shell for his ghost, which then like overloaded his ghost to be able to now tap into spectrums of beyond like the light spectrum.
Well, I don't think it was just. I don't think he necessarily made changes to the ghost shell, or not just the shell. I think he literally opened up the guts of the little
Oh my
ball
god.
and made changes to it.
Oh my god.
Because the shell is just cosmetic. Because our ghost can
Right.
swap shells, no problem. Um,
But the orb at the center is always the same.
right. So he had to make changes to the orb
Oh my
to
god.
get this new ability to see in this new spectrum that they could manipulate.
I mean, I guess that's the question is what does that do for the drifter as a guardian, as a person, as a light bearer?
I think it gave Drifter the ability to tap into at least a frequency of dark. I mean,
Holy
he
shit.
says that's what the bank, the derelict, and
Right.
dark moats all were innovated from this red light setting.
Can he willy-nilly summon Taken? Is that him summoning Taken? Like that's not him like just like, hey, I'm gonna hit a moat and double tap on an edge and that's what causes a captain to appear. Can he actively summon Taken?
I think it costs him a mode of dark to do it, and I don't think he can create them. But I think he's captured enough in some, maybe like a
Holy
pocket
shit.
dimension somewhere, maybe a little
I
piece
mean,
of
they come
ascendant
from a
plane.
black hole.
Yeah.
Holy
And
shit.
he uses the energy of that dark mote, and I think it's absolutely him that is summoning them.
Well, shit. But why? Like, why would you? I mean, I guess that's the big question with the drifter is why? Like, other than like, screw the traveler. Well, not necessarily screw. No, screw the traveler. He's flipped him off.
Oh
Yep.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I think a lot of it comes down to self-preservation. He doesn't want to rely on
Oh no, like
anything.
one thing.
Yeah, he wants backup plans for his backup plans, and
Yep.
he has seen the light do terrible destruction.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh my God, yes.
he is kind of in his own way searching for a power source that isn't the light, because he sees the light as being a nuke essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I'm speechless in this. This is genuinely blown. Like he is literally he he's got to be the only guy to have seen the inside of a ghost.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, perhaps Spider with his collection.
Sure.
Um
Sure.
Maybe he's gotten curious and opened one up, but yeah, like, and at his own ghost's behest, to hunt down his fellow ghosts, to use them for parts to make this change.
What does that say about ghosts? Like that they can just like willy-nilly be like, "Yeah, screw it. We're going to hunt these things down and use them." Like where I guess the question is like where did the ghost get the idea for this? Like how did the ghost know that like taking parts off another ghost and modifying itself and again like you were saying not the shell but the actual orb at the center the actual ghost modifying itself would allow this to happen? How does the ghost not know, or how does the ghost know that it's not going to just completely destroy him?
I think it was a gamble.
I
I
think you're right.
I think the ghost went, okay, I know there's an energy frequency being used to keep those things in their frozen prisons. I know I can produce energy frequencies, but I can't produce that one. So maybe if I had more of the parts that allow me to produce an energy frequency, I could reach into new frequencies, including that one. And I have to assume it just guessed. It just
Yeah.
went, well, we can either die here eventually, or
Try it or die.
yeah, or we can try this crazy plan that is going to forever cripple me in some ways.
Right, because he says that's the last time he speaks. Like he
Yeah.
can't speak to him anymore. And I guess I was going to ask, have we ever seen Drifter's ghost?
I don't know if we have. I don't know if we've ever
I can't
seen
think of
him.
an instance we've ever seen him.
If we did, it was in like, over his shoulder in a cutscene briefly kind of thing. Like he's never been a feature of, anything
Right.
in game.
I'd have to go back and look. The only time that I think that it might have appeared was when they were on your that original scene with Europa when the oh, I can't even think of the fish's name now. Anyway, Elsie's little fish, the poo poo
Puka?
puka. Thank
Yeah.
you. I've wanted a fish so badly, I've forgotten what it's called. In that scene where we first saw the little puka, there might have been his ghost might have been in that scene, but I honestly can't think of a single scene that we've ever seen his ghost.
Yeah, I don't know if we have. Um yeah.
I for the longest time thought that he ate him, that he ate his ghost, but that's from Callus's mind.
Yes.
That's a totally different thing, though appropriate.
Yeah, they're
Totally different.
totally like not outside the realm of possibility when it comes to Drifter, but yeah.
That's what I'm getting. I'm I'm still hungry. Like, you gonna eat that? Yeah, yeah. That's Drifter. Holy
So,
cow, though. I mean, well, at least I mean we know how he got back. That
yep.
just, but Jesus.
So presumably at this point in time, in our readings, Gambit is up and running in the city.
Hmm. Yep.
Drifter has come to the city. He's gotten Guardians interested in Gambit. They're going out and collecting dark motes for him and banking them. Giving him this stockpile of dark motes. And the Vanguard are allowing it. Like they know about him. At first, he's kind of hidden away, but even then, I believe it's like Ikora is like, yeah, we know he's there.
Yeah. You're not gonna
Like,
just run ops out of the tower
right.
without the Vanguard being like, "Hey, what you doing up here?" Yeah.
Yeah. And they're wary about it for a lot of reasons. Drifter doesn't seem like a very trustworthy person, and he certainly doesn't seem to be a herald of the light by any means. Uh, so they're kind of observing and allowing him for the time being kind of to see in a similar way that Shin is using Gambit to see like who are the real bad eggs in the Guardian ranks, like who's really drawn to this dark game.
Ooh.
And
Almost using it as like bait, like the way that Callum
yeah,
and Shin were. Okay.
yep,
Okay.
very similarly. uh
Man, everybody's got a secret motive for everything. What the hell? Bunch of untrustworthy zombies is what we got.
and so they assign a warlock of the Praxic order by the name of Anor to kind of
Wait a
be the
second.
overseer of Drifter.
Wasn't what was the name of the warlock in the
uh
exotics?
in which exotics? The getaway artist?
In yeah.
Different warlock.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You said Enor and I was like, "Wait a second."
Yeah. um no, I don't have the getaway artist up in front of me anymore, but it's a different warlock.
Okay. Okay. Just making sure it was like it's not like this like full circle betrayal like,
Not
"Hey,
quite.
I know you ran with this guy, but now you're part of the practice order, so now we're going to have you spy on him."
Yeah, not quite. But no. So Drifter has a few things to say about this arrangement. And this is again in the survival guide. He gives us these two pieces of dialogue. And they go like this: Mighty kind of the Vanguard to let me sleep in the annex. Doesn't get cold down there. Much. Do I trust them for it? Hell no. They're getting people killed just like the Iron Lords. Yes, people. Like you and me. Just 'cause we got the light doesn't mean we ever stop being that. Don't you let them tell you otherwise. And that mission statement of theirs, protecting the city, humanity's done, kid. You can't save 'em. Even if you could wrap a warded dawn around this whole town, they'd start dying all on their own. Every single one you save just becomes a memory. I don't need any more of those. You'll get there. You'll see. I thought the city had made you all soft, but there's this hardliner, a warlock named Anor. Pretty sure she's trying to kill me. She crashed a handoff between me and the Shadows of Yore in Midtown. My, buddies took a hostage, and she took out a city block getting them back. Some people didn't make it out. How's that for hypocrisy? She jumped the shark on that one. I would have talked 'em down. No one had to get hurt. I hope the Vanguard are happy. I heard word from hunter dens across the city. This Anor's been building a crew to look into me and the Shadows. Bunch of clowns. One of them is this Guardian, hero of the Red War, just like you. One of Cade's friends, just like you. A Gambit regular. Except they're a snitch. Have been all this time. I don't mind. As long as they keep bringing motes, we're square. You watch your back out there, partner. Your friends might not be what they seem. And that's the end of those two messages.
He's actively calling out the people that were on the other side of that
Oh, yes.
quest. Like, because like if you chose the Vanguard, I don't think he does it anymore. I can't,
No, he doesn't
because
anymore.
I didn't think so. But if you had chosen the Vanguard, like when you went and ran Gambit, he'd call you a snitch. Like he'd be like, I don't care, snitch. Like just bring me those motes, and I will, like that's like always his thing is just just get me motes, just get me motes, just get me motes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like he's actively calling out because he said another champion of the Red War, just like you. But yeah, oh my gosh, okay,
So, for those that aren't aware, what we're referring to is there was a quest line where you could side with either the Drifter and his endeavors or with the Warlock Anor in investigating the Drifter. And really, at the end of the day, there wasn't much difference between the two, except you got some different lore books, depending on which
yeah.
side you went with. And you got slightly different missions with some different dialogues.
You got a fake Galahorn.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that.
But the whole thought was, on one side you were pairing with the Drifter, and on the other side you were pairing with the Vanguard and investigating him as kind of a double agent. But
Yep.
clearly he knew for the people that
Right.
chose that route.
Well, as far as like Enor and the Praxic Order, uh, is this is just a single warlock doing this? Like it's not they Ikora didn't send the entire Praxic Order after this after Drifter, did she?
No, 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 no.
Okay, that's a little
Yeah.
much.
No, this was a single warlock who is a member of the Praxic Order as well as a member of Ikora's Hidden.
Right, right.
Um, and for those that are not familiar, the Praxic Order is an organization of warlocks that's in the last city that have the sole purpose of keeping artifacts related to darkness away from guardians. And they're definitely not as black and white about it as Shin Malford is, at least during this point in time. But they're still hardliners, as Drifter puts it. Like they are very rough and gruff people. They do not want Guardians using darkness at this time.
Okay.
And they still don't.
Okay. Right. Like even Zavala has reservations about using darkness.
Yeah, and Anor herself shows up in current lore from even like last season, uh talking about how she thinks using stasis is affecting guardians mentally,
Oh, right,
uh
right.
and kind of her thoughts on that. So she's still a character that's around, but this is the one interaction. This quest chain was the one interaction she had with Drifter specifically.
Gotcha. Okay.
But so with that, I think this is going to be a good spot to wrap up
Okay.
our second episode of the Drifter.
Okay. Well, we definitely still have more.
Yes, we absolutely have more. So there will be a third part. From the information I'm looking at, it should only be a third part. Our next one should be the conclusion to this series, and then
Well,
we'll
sweet.
move on to another.
Yeah, then we can do some crazy shit like Nine or Shin Malphur or,
Yeah.
or Jaren Ward and I mean literally Drifter's had his finger in all of this. Okay. We don't have any shout outs for this episode particularly because at the time of releasing this episode, I will be in Hawaii. We pre-recorded this one so that way it could be we could keep the content coming because we
Mm-hmm.
know how much everyone loves our podcast and especially listening to our podcast over work. And I I don't highly recommend it, but thank you. So yeah. Myth, you got anything you want to add to anything?
No, just the normal plug. And say, even though we don't have any shout outs tonight, just because we literally just did the last episode as far as recording. Uh if you like what you hear and you want to help us out, give us a rating on your platform of choice, be that Audible or Apple or Spotify. Uh, all of that helps other people see us. If you want to reach out, let us know what you think or a question about a particularly interesting piece of lore or something. You can reach us at our Twitter, which is at Myths and Stories, Z instead of an S on stories. Um, and we watch that there and respond to things as we can. Actually, one thing I do want to mention is that there was somebody uh, that made a suggestion on our Twitter that was along the lines of like have big discussion threads of episodes on the Twitter, and then maybe shout out some of the good or relevant comments from those
Ooh, I
threads.
like this.
Yeah,
Yeah, get some interaction.
yeah, definitely not a bad idea. The only issue I see with it at the moment is just we don't have a lot of people to have those discussions on Twitter at the moment. So I don't know that it
It's
would.
very small crowd to pull from right
It's a
now.
very niche community, which is cool. That's perfectly fine. But we're not going to get like Reddit or YouTube levels of comment discussions kind of things.
Oh no.
Um,
No,
and
I don't know that we could handle that. I
yeah.
couldn't.
And also, unfortunately, the reality of it is that uh it's not a possibility for me at least to be on Twitter terribly often on a daily basis to try and like curate or keep those discussions going, just because standard 9 to 5 and other life stuff and whatnot.
Hashtag let's get sponsored. Hashtag let's get our own moderator.
Someday maybe, but
Someday when we
but
make it
yeah.
big, right?
Yeah, right.
When we're sipping tea and wine with Bife and Mylan, that may be a possibility. But
Yeah.
as of today, not so realistic,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I love the idea. We just gotta we gotta get to that point though first.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. So thank you for that though. Thank you for those kinds of ideas and hey, I think this would be cool. Like, all that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I guess that's it for tonight then. Any? Oh, you know what I haven't done in a while, Myth?
What's that?
I haven't given out a thank you, like a personalized thank you in a while.
Oh, well, there you go. What do you want to do?
I think I need to give one. Well, let's see. I got a lot to choose from in these last two episodes. Shit. Well, I guess I can't just thank Drifter outright. Like that just seems silly. Like I mean, I guess I'll give him a thank you for letting us talk about him, but um no, you know what? You know what? I think I am gonna thank no, screw it. I'm thanking Drifter. He wins. Yeah.
Well,
Without
there you go.
Drifter, we wouldn't have malfeasance. Uh so thanks, Drifter. Thanks for
Oh,
malfeasance.
yeah, that's a pretty hard one to compete against.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Now if we could just get a catalyst for it. That's all I want.
Yeah,
Give me like plus 20 range or something. That's cool. I'm cool with that. I do love that we have unstoppable added to it. Gives me another reason to use it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Alrighty. Anything else, man?
No, that's it.
Alrighty. Well then, from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next week.